I was a boy when I saw the first ship, perched on the horizon, masts reaching into the golden sky, and the boat's hull, a dark silhouette, cutting through the calm, alluring, sunlit waters of the bay. I sat by the shore, my back turned to the village, my home. Perhaps I could have warned them, told them to prepare, run, escape before it's too late. But I was a boy, and therefore credulous in nature. And it was not until I saw the limbless, coiled, serpentine figurehead of the nearing boats that I realized these were not sailors. They were pirates, and they were not of Tamrielic descent, but Akaviri. And soon enough the sky was illuminated in an orange glow, tarnished black with smoke billowing from the village below, and the smell of burning flesh pervaded the air. And as I ran, the agonizing screams of friends and family echoed, and would conglomerate with the laughing and the hissing of the snake people of Akavir. From that day forth, Wayrest and Iliac Bay would harbour true fear, and the few who survived, including myself, would prepare, waiting for the inevitable coming of another invasion. Hey everyone, my name's Jeremy, and today we'll be exploring the mysterious land of Akavir, the continent to the east of Tamriel. It is a land very different from Dawn's Beauty, with very little information of the lands being recorded in history, and accommodating no men or mer, instead only beast races. In this video, we'll be traversing the lands of Akavir, examining its influence on Tamriel, and shedding light on the unique races that inhabit the enigmatic land. But before we begin, I'd like to remind you that if you ever notice you are fascinated with this topic, then I would implore you to like the video. And if you find yourself invading foreign lands looking for more content like this, then consider subscribing. It would mean a lot to me and immensely support the channel. Akavir, also recognized as Dragonland, stands as the eastern continent of Tamriel. Tamriel meaning Dawn's Beauty. Its historical involvement with Dawn's Beauty has primarily been marked with hostility over the centuries. However, some Akaviri are known to have positively engaged with Tamriel and left an indelible mark on the pages of history. Most knowledge of Akavir is only known through its interactions with Tamriel, and it's believed that during the time periods when they were not involved with Tamriel, they were instead fighting among themselves. The first documented appearance of Akaviri on Tamriel was in the form of pirates, particularly around the region of Iliac Bay. It is unknown why they ventured so far from their home of Akavir. However, the Imperial Geographic Society has speculated that they may have potentially been scouts who were preparing for the eventual invasions. Among the earliest tales related to Akavir is the story of Lyrisias. Yet given the myths and the far-fetched nature of the narrative, there is a good chance that this story is exaggerated, and, at the very least, partially contrived to provide a more interesting historical account. The story is as follows. In ancient times there lived a hero named Lyrisias. He fought against the Akaviri slave traders and single-handedly slew hundreds. Despite his valor, his army was routed and scattered to the four winds. Lyrisias would flee into the moors to escape the Akaviri chariots. Far from the lands of men, Lyrisias entered the blasted lands. At the heart of this forsaken landscape, he met the worm. The great scaly beast mocked the mighty blows of Lyrisias's enchanted spear. It melted his shield, fear-struck, gift of Daedra Boethia, with a single blast of its fiery breath. Lyrisias, seeing that he could not defeat the creature by force of arms, surrendered. The worm intended to devour Lyrisias when the hero offered to be its slave and manservant. Ever prideful, the worm agreed. Seeing that the worm was vulnerable to conceit, Lyrisias spoke. "O great worm, for my service I beg that you allow me to polish your one tarnished scale." Indeed, centered between the great wings of the creature was a dull scale, clearly out of reach of its long neck. Its vanity was such that it immediately lowered one wing for Lyrisias to climb upon. Once atop the great lizard, Lyrisias slid his dagger underneath the scale and into the tender flesh of the beast. Though it spun and twisted in all directions, the worm could not get at the hero. Finally, it took to the air. Lyrisias clung to the neck with all his strength as the worm banked, rolled, and dove. Seeing that Lyrisius could not be shaken free, the worm demanded that he remove the stinging blade. Lyrisius answered, "Fly straight on until you see a great army. Destroy that army, and I will remove my blade." With a great roar, the scaled creature set off. The Akavir army had no chance against the fire-breathing beast. They had never plagued Tamriel since. "I have done as you bid. Now sheath your stinger," roared the worm. Knowing that he would be devoured, or worse, Lyrisius pulled the blade, and then leapt from the back of the flying worm. Indeed, the foul monster had intended to slay the hero. The worm pursued the plummeting Lyrisius, and as he fell, Boethia would appear beside the falling hero. Praising him for ultimately destroying the army of Akavir, and turned him into a raven, Lyrisius quickly lost the worm in the clouds. Legend has it that the worm still lives, though this happened in the First Era long, long ago. The dragon nurses a grudge against Lyrisius and all of his kind. It is vowed to never again trust the two-legged bearers of weapons. Due to the story's mythical nature and the absence of any historical references to the battle between Lyrisius' army and the Akaviri invaders, it is very likely altered or contrived. It appears to have served more as an entertaining story of tale or a lesson, rather than a detailed historical account. There are four main races of beast folk on Akavir: the Tsaesci, Kamal, Tang, and the Capotan. The Tsaesci, also known as the Serpent Folk or Snake Men, inhabit the province of Tsaesci, meaning Snake Palace. This characteristic of the race and the province sharing the same name is prevalent throughout Akavir. It's also believed that a race of men once inhabited Akavir, however were eaten long ago by the vampiric Serpent Folk of Tsaesci. Had these men not been eaten, they would have eventually migrated to Tamriel, as all men in Mer know that Tamriel is the nexus of creation, where the last war will happen, where the gods unmade Lorcan and left the adamantine tower of secrets. Who knows what the Akaviri think of Tamriel, but ask yourself, why have they tried to invade it 3 times or more? It is said that the vampiric snake folk of Akavir not only ate all the men there, but also devoured all the dragons there, with the few who survived flying to Tamriel. This point just highlights how potentially dangerous Akavir really is to Tamriel. Dragons in Tamriel effortlessly subjugated and ruled over the mortal inhabitants, with the Nords only breaking free through a large-scale uprising. In contrast, on Akavir, the dragons faced total annihilation, compelling them to retreat. The racial status of the Tsaesci serpent folk is ambiguous, as different sources claim alternate accounts. Some claim them as a human race, while others suggest a more literal form to their serpentine description, describing them as having the bodies of inverted gorgons. All encounters with the snake people have portrayed a humanoid appearance, implying that their snake characteristics are more metaphorical descriptions. However, they might be capable of shapeshifting, akin to werbeasts, or perhaps their appearance could be influenced by what they consume. There's even a possibility that they are similar to the Khajiit, a race on Tamriel whose appearance in nature is determined by the phase of the moon during their birth. Tsaesci weaponry stands distinct and separate from that of Tamriel. Their arsenal includes elegant and efficient katanas, which due to their expensive production are not widely adopted by the legions. Additionally, the Tsaesci are recognized for their stylish Tanto dagger and the wakizashi, a more refined, single-edged version of the common double-edged swords. Perhaps the most renowned among their weapons are the Dai katanas, long, curved, single-edged, two-handed swords. The Tsaesci would be the first of the Akavir races to launch an invasion on Tamriel. In the First Era 2703, the first Akaviri invasion would take place. A large Tsaesci armada landed on the northern coast of Tamriel, in Morrowind. Marching through Morrowind and Skyrim, they defeated everything in their way, leaving a path of triumph across the provinces. However, their decision to land in Morrowind provoked the wrath of the living god Vivek, who forged an alliance with the Trident Kings of the Dregs to launch a surprise attack from behind. This strategic move effectively severed the Tsaesci invaders from their supply lines and any potential escape routes via the sea. Despite these challenges, the Akavir forces persisted in their advance, pressing on through Morrowind and into Skyrim. This Akavir invasion was what allowed Riemann to unite the forces of Cyrodiil, rallying the armies of Kolovia and Nibelheim under his banner, unifying Cyrodiil against a foreign threat. He utilized and built many of the forts and castles in Skyrim to defend against Akavir. However, the Tsaesci would continue to overpower the Tamrielic armies until they eventually arrived at the Gerald Mountains. They were brought to a halt by a lack of supplies and set up headquarters at the defensible Pale Pass, where they were met by the forces of a united Cyrodiil under the command of Riemann. It was initially unclear why the Tsaesci were invading. They did not try to consolidate land, and therefore were not attempting to conquer Tamriel. Instead, they left a blazing trail through Dawn's Beauty, seemingly searching for something. And it was here, at Pale Pass, that the sought-after target would be revealed. Riemann's army had only just begun to advance into the mountains, when the entire Akavir force, upon hearing the voice of Riemann, would kneel before him, saying they had found what they came to Tamriel for, and proclaimed Riemann as Dragonborn. Riemann would integrate many of these Tsaesci warriors into his own armies and into his personal service, leading to the formation of the Dragon Guard, an organization which would play a major role in the Empire and would eventually evolve into the group known as the Blades. Following this event, many Tsaesci individuals would play prominent roles in the Empire, even to the point of ruling the Empire, during a time known as the Akaviri Potentate. They would also introduce the well-known Fighters Guild, as well as the adoption of the iconic dragon symbol as the insignia of the Empire. A second Akaviri invasion would take place in 2E572. A fleet originating from the Akaviri nation of Kamal invaded northern Tamriel during the interregnum of the Second Era. The invading forces, the Kamal, are a race of snow demons who live in Akavir. These snow demons would spend the winter frozen solid, and during the summer, they would thaw out and attack the monkey folk of Tang, always unsuccessfully. Their invasion would begin upon the coast of Skyrim under the leadership of their king, Adasum Dur Kamal. They were reportedly searching for some kind of object or a person that they referred to as the Ordained Receptacle. This is the likely reason for their unnatural invasion of Tamriel, as they completely bypassed Morrowind in its entirety and landed near Windhelm in eastern Skyrim, catching the Nords off guard and sacking the city. Oddly, they then headed south, ignoring the city of Riften, and marched into the Stonefalls region of Morrowind. Upon arriving in a region that would later become known as Vivek's Antlers, the Akaviri army of the Kamal would be surrounded. To the south, they faced a Dunmer army led by the living god Almalexia, and shortly after they were met by a Nord army to the north, under the leadership of Prince Joran, who had chased the Akaviri invaders into Morrowind. The Kamal fought violently, hoping to survive long enough for their fleet to arrive and evacuate them. However, a phalanx of Argonian shellbacks emerged from the water, preventing their escape, and Vivek would summon a tidal wave, ensuring victory and obliterating the Kamal invaders. This battle would lead to the establishment of the Ebonheart Pact, the most unlikely of the three alliances, formed between the Nords of Skyrim, the Dunmer of Morrowind, and the Argonians of Blackmarsh. Despite the Kamal's prominence in the history of Tamriel, we still know very little of them. We are unsure of the purpose of their invasion of Tamriel, or what the Ordained Receptacle is. It appears that they believed the receptacle was in Skyrim. However, upon arriving, it may have become apparent that it wasn't there, and subsequently they journeyed to Morrowind in search of it. We are unsure exactly what the Ordained Receptacle is. Could it be that they were seeking the heart of Lord Khan? They may have presumed that the tallest mountain, the throat of the world, housed the heart. Upon realizing it wasn't there, they then set course for Morrowind, making their way towards Red Mountain, the next most significant geographical anomaly in Tamriel. It could also possibly be the Eye of Magnus in Sarthal that they were searching for. Whatever this thing was, we cannot be sure of, and can only leave to speculation. Regardless, at present, This knowledge rests solely with the Kamal. The most unknown race of Akavir, and perhaps the weakest of them, is the Tang Mo. Tang Mo translating to Thousand Monkey Isles. The Tang Mo are generous and kind monkey folk. They are very brave and simple, and many are also believed to be insane. There are various breeds of Tang Mo, and it is believed that they can raise armies when they must, for all of the other Akaviri nations have, at some point, tried to enslave them. It is said that every year, the demons of Kamal thaw out after winter and attempt to invade them, always failing however. So far the Tang Mo have always been successful in defending their lands. However, with the growing threat of their enemies, the Tsaesci nation, they have allied themselves with the Tang. The book Mysterious Akavir states the following about the Tang Mo. They cannot decide who they hate more, the snakes or the demons, but ask one, and he will probably say the snakes. Though once bitter enemies, the monkey folk are now allies with the tiger folk of the Tang. The final race of Akavir are the Tang. They are a race of tiger-like catfolk, very similar to the Khajiit of Tamriel. However, the extent of their relatedness, or if they are related at all, is unknown. Although all races of Akavir have fought each other before, the tiger people consider the Tsaesci to be their greatest enemies. The leader of the Tang is Raka, an emperor believed to have ruled sometime towards the end of the Third Era. Through unknown means, he supposedly transformed himself into a dragon, with some sources claiming that he also transformed himself into a god. He is rumoured to be a divine being, who was the first of his race to succeed at becoming a dragon, with the book Mysterious Akavir claiming that this change was indeed physical, with Raka having all the physical characteristics of a dragon, with a tiger-like colouring, orange and black. According to Mysterious Akavir, Tang is the tiger dragon's empire. The catfolk here are ruled by the divine Raka, the tiger dragon. They are now a very great empire, stronger than the Tsaesci, though not at sea. After the serpent folk ate all the men, they tried to eat all the dragons. They managed to enslave the red dragons, but the black ones had fled to then Potan. A great war was raged, which left both the cats and the snakes weak, and the dragons all dead. Since that time, the catfolk have tried to become dragons. Raka is the first to succeed. He is the largest dragon in the world, orange and black, and he has very many new ideas. Under his rulership, the province of Potan, meaning Tiger Empire, became known as Tang, meaning Tiger Dragon Empire, and through his leadership he turned the empire into a force of equal power to the Tsaesci. His name, Raka, is an anagram for Akatosh, with an R added to it, suggesting that he could potentially be an avatar of Akatosh, or, as the sources claim, he did indeed transform into a god, who is the mirror brother of Akatosh and the largest dragon in existence, orange and black, and fueled with hatred and ambition. Raka supposedly planned to conquer Akavir, and then, after conquering Akavir, would set his eyes on Tamriel. How could a man possibly become a dragon? This concept is entirely foreign to the people of Tamriel, with the exception of Martin Septim, of course. However, his transformation was temporary and costed him his life, as well as the Amulet of Kings. Regardless of this incomprehensible change, the tiger folk have learnt to transfigure their bodies, and that knowledge remains with them, for now and the foreseeable future. In the mid-Third Era, Emperor Uriel Septim V, a ruler filled with ambition and profound inspiration, was enticed by the fame and accomplishments of Riemann and Tiber Septim. Upon ascending to power, the whole of Tamriel was already firmly under the Empire's control. Recognizing the limited methods that he could use to distinguish himself, he set his sights on a new goal, taking up a new undertaking that would secure his place as the greatest emperor in history, conquering the distant land of Akavir. This ambitious plan had never been done before, let alone attempted by any other emperor in history. After about a decade of preparation, the Empire's navy arrived in Akavir. Initially, they were met with success. However, the invasion would soon become a disaster. They were met with brutal conditions, being plagued with the severe weather of Akavir, being much more harsh than they initially anticipated. This was not the only issue, as soon, the Tsaesci armies would eliminate all scouts sent out by the Empire and would sever the supply line between Septimia and Ionith. Communications were soon lost. The Tsaesci armies surrounded the city of Ionith, where the Emperor and his army were located. From this point on, the communications between Tamriel and the invasion was scarce, with most messengers who were sent disappearing before making contact. A huge battle took place, with the city of Ionith being sieged by the Akaviri people. No more messages would be shared from this point on, with the final contact with the Emperor occurring in early Frostfall. The fleet arrived in Septimia, finding its garrison under assault from a large Tsaesci army. The fleet would throw the enemy back long enough for the survivors to board and withdraw. Despite escalating concerns about Akavir, the council ordered the fleet to sail. Plans were made for the expeditionary force to break out and retreat to Septimia. However, upon the fleet's arrival in Septimia, they found the garrison besieged by a large Tsaesci army. The few survivors of the expeditionary force who reached Septimia told how the Emperor had led the army out of Ionith by night 2 days earlier. They told of a heroic last stand by the Emperor and the 10th Legion, which allowed a remnant of the 14th to reach Septimia. 2 survivors of the 10th arrived in Septimia that night, having slipped through the enemy lines during their undisciplined victory celebration. These men confirmed having seen the Emperor die, cut down by enemy arrows as he railed the 10th shield wall. After this event, the Empire concluded that given what we know, any attempt to invade Akavir is folly, at least in the present state of the Empire. The Empire's legions are needed at home. One day, a peaceful, united Empire will return to Akavir and exact severe retribution for the disaster at Ionith and for our fallen Emperor. But that day is not now, nor in the foreseeable future. And that would be the final interaction with Akavir that was recorded in history. Over 3 centuries have elapsed since, and a great many of things could have happened during that time. Perhaps the nations of Akavir are preparing for a full-scale invasion of Tamriel. Regardless, the people of Tamriel remain preoccupied with more immediate concerns, such as the Aldmeri Dominion, diverting their attention away with their own quarrels, distracting them from the true threat looming to the east. And that would conclude everything we know of Akavir, the Dragonland to the east. Thanks everyone for watching. Be sure to support the channel and leave a comment down below of your thoughts on the topic. Look forward to seeing you again in the next video.